I said what I meant and I meant what I said, but in case you were wondering my thoughts on these projects here, because I'm not dropping any more roundups until 2021, not bad, has some good moments. It's Jack Harlow being Jack Harlow. Never been a fan of Boldy James' laid-back rapping style, sounds a little lazy to me, but even then I can tell that he kills his project for the most part. And, I'll get around to it later. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Music Gauntlet channel. I hope you all are having a wonderful day so far, and today we are going to be talking about the latest release from Kid Cudi called Man on the Moon 3. The humming god, the man who is known for normalizing the popularity of melodic rapping, and what a career this man has had, the ups and downs, the amount of loops he's thrown his fans through over the years, it's insane almost. I remember there was a time period when people weren't necessarily not messing with Cudi, but after he got way too experimental and spacious with his rap music and then went on to make a really awful punk rock album, people didn't hate him per se because he had the first two Man on the Moons under his belt, but they definitely put him way on the back burner, like the furthest back burner you got, opposite side of the kitchen. Despite releasing a project, Passion, Pain, and Demon Slaying in 2016 that brought back some of the old Cudi feel, it was still extremely long-winded and included some ideas that were pretty half-baked. At this point, with Kid Cudi also trying his hand in different forms of media like television and movies.
Why did you help us?
I dig his shirt.
My shirt. You're a Cold Trickle fan?
Days of Thunder is the greatest movie ever made, bro.
Not many people had high expectations for Cudi musically. That is until 2018 when he teamed up with Kanye West to release his 7-song album notoriously known as Kids See Ghosts. While some people thinking it was better than others, either way the consensus was that this project was something to be remembered and something to listen to for sure. It was a moment for hip-hop and music in general. But a true Kid Cudi renaissance cannot be called until we heard what his solo material was going to sound like. Without the aid of Kanye West by his side, could he still carry an LP? This album being a third installment to two previous projects that Kid Cudi purists will tell you are their favorite projects of all time. Does it match up to that hype or fall short of the pressure applied by its predecessors? Well, truthfully, ladies and gentlemen, I think Cudi's come out with his best solo project in years. What always blew my mind was how Kid Cudi was a master of dramatizing music but seemed to not play to that strength on certain releases. You would think with Cudi inspiring this new age, he would also be able to fit into it comfortably. Not that he didn't have the ability, but it seemed like he was being held back by his own mental health. But that's why it brings me such joy to be able to say that this project not only is like a therapeutic view of existentialism for Kid Cudi, but it just reminds you why you love him as an artist so much. Cudi structuring his album into different acts like he's done on his previous Man on the Moon efforts allows him to explore this idea of 21st century existentialism a lot more, that being the idea that a person's life has no relative purpose or meaning aside from what they shape it up to be. He makes this apparent with the editor's notes on the back of the album above the track listing. And while I appreciate the concept, and I do say for the most part he stays true to what he's trying to accomplish on this project, in my opinion it works better when you aren't trying to connect each song to each other and wondering what phase in his life is he at during this track. It adds cool lore to the project, but to be the main focus doesn't really aid in the experience. While some of these songs would have sounded awkward being after other songs, it's not an album that I would say you have to hear it from start to finish in the exact same order that it appears, because it doesn't really add that much to my listening experience when I hear it. Despite this, what I love about this project almost to a greater extent than the first two Man on the Moons is its world building. Even from the opening track, it lures you in with this spaced out instrumental that's reminiscent of the first song of Cudi's first Man on the Moon. He's somehow able to incorporate modern production from the likes of Take a Day Trip, known for making hit singles like Mo Bamba and Panini, with producers that he's worked with in the past on other Man on the Moon projects like Mike Dean. I truly feel like I am in a different realm, a different dimension when I am listening to this project. It feels adventurous, supernatural, almost even mysterious, a perfect background for Cudi to not only lose his sense of purpose, but find it within the same project as well. The official opening track, Tequila Shots, is a low-key banger, Kid Cudi reflecting on his past as an up-and-coming artist and using that to build off his better character today. The track begins with these really menacing synth chimes that let you know that Take a Day Trip produced the song, considering they made the Scots as well, or had a hand in it I should say, eventually evolving into a wavering synth line throughout the whole song combined with a hard knocking beat. It just grabs your attention right out of the gate with Kid Cudi narrating his downfall, sounding like he's disappointed in himself. It's as if he's the ghost of Christmas past and he's about to show you what he was like back then and he's not proud of it. Which works because, by the way, he's combining this catchy chorus with his melodic rap flow. It reminds you a lot of the initial Man on the Moon Kid Cudi. Exploring darker themes over more accessible sounds, having a bit of a trippy edge to them is nothing new. I mean, literally Pursuit of Happiness was made with all this in mind. If you somehow overlooked the grim nature of that song, then you gotta go listen to it again. The track She Knows This finds Kid Cudi in his bag, really feeling himself. Simply rapping about the various women that he's been with, Cudi makes it so refreshing due to the fact that he hasn't talked about the subject matter in forever, and he does it so well. The first leg of the track has these higher pitched robotic yelps that have been around for a while. I know they were Kanye's trademark for a little bit and it reminds me a lot of Drake's Show Me a Good Time. But but the ear-catching production element comes in the form of whistling that sounds like a bunch of miners doing it in unison while they work, which eventually transitions into the second part of the song, which sounds like the song is just flipping inside out and showing you its sci-fi innards. No matter what song we're talking about in the first act of this album, it always feels like each one is masked in this feeling of hopelessness. Even outside of this act, on the following one, The Ranger and the Menace, I like Cudi's psychedelic transparency on the track Damaged, and you can't tell me over the shiver-inducing music box beatwork of the track Heaven on Earth, Cudi doesn't sound like some kind of creature of the night. And I can't pin it as one specific act because it kind of overlaps in that sense, but the tracks Show Out all throughout September 16, these were my least favorite batch of songs, and they happen pretty consistently. Cudi was able to get his hands on Show Out with Pop Smoke and Skepta on it due to his work with Dr. Genius already, who had connections to them, but in that light it feels like Cudi dropped the song on this album without thinking how it would fit into the overall flow. It's definitely grown on me a lot since I've heard it, but it feels a little too out of pocket for Kid Cudi, and I'm not the biggest fan of, despite it being a posthumous chorus from Pop Smoke, it sounds like he's kind of droning throughout the hook, not really adding much to the track other than a bit of a sinister feel, but not an immense one. It fits well enough, and I'm actually a little surprised Kid Cudi wrote a drill beat that well, but even then, it's not one of my favorites here. The same goes for the next track, Solo Dolo Part 3. I like the atmospheric production, I like the chorus on this thing, however, I don't like the faded reverb he has all over his voice on this thing. It makes him sound less alone and more like he's bored out of his mind. I appreciate the heart and soul he puts into songs like Sad People, Elsie's Baby Boy, and September 16th. You can tell there's passion that lies in his vocals. However, those vocals are a lot more harmony driven and singing driven, and I'm not the biggest fan of when Kid Cudi does this because his singing voice is not fantastic. Combine that with more stripped back production, which I can tell was intentional, but still it does not sound all that great. It makes you focus on those vocal lines that don't pan out all that well. I appreciate the subtle bass chords and Kid Cudi making a message about being there for anybody that's dealing with sadness and depression on the track Sad People, but the way that he lingers on certain words with a dash of autotune makes some points of the song hard to sit through, especially when he's having a vocal range like a roller coaster. And I really do appreciate the track Elsie's Baby Boy for showing adoration towards his mom for putting so much effort and making so many sacrifices when he was a kid, not realizing it then, but really appreciating it now. But there's only so many times I can hear, "He was born in the winter," before I start getting bored myself. The laid back guitar strings make the song sweet and sentimental, but it doesn't do enough to save it overall. And the track September 16th, him making an ode to his girlfriend about him being in love, being infatuated with her, it's fine. I'm glad he's in love, I'm glad he's happy. But you'd think with that subject matter in mind, you wouldn't make that song the most lifeless one in your track listing. Like, if you're really that deeply in love with this person, then it doesn't really show with this track here. And I guess you could say love is intoxicating, like the woozy feel of this track, but the underwritten nature of the song makes it seem like it's something that was just an afterthought. Luckily, things pick up right after this with the infectious The Void, serving as a powerful anthem talking about shielding yourself from the negativity in your life at times just to remind yourself of what's good and pure, paired with the chorus that might be the stickiest on the entire project. I would fall in the void, just to avoid anything that'll bring me down. I have to talk about the track Lovin' Me with indie act Phoebe Bridgers. May I just say the perfect feature to talk about the struggle and importance of self-love. That chorus really hits you. Kid Cudi talking about he couldn't grow until he learned to love himself. You feel the struggle and anguish in Kid Cudi's voice when he's talking about not knowing what was wrong with him, trying to find happiness but being unable to do so. I wasn't the biggest fan of Bridger's vocals when I first heard this song, but hearing it again and again, I learned to really appreciate the alternate perspective she gives and just different outlook from Cudi's. Bridgers and Cudi layering their vocals over a dreamy backdrop makes this song probably my favorite on the entire project. And the last few songs on here playing into Act 4 Powers actually play out extremely well and end the album on a really good note. Cudi is not only reflecting on his overall journey, but being extremely grateful that he's made it to this point with the amount of fans that he has, people sticking with him throughout his career despite all the phases that he's gone through, and being rejuvenated by his newfound happiness and way to balance out his life, so when he does have his bad days, they're not going to overcome him. Being an Ohioan myself, it's cool to see two iconic artists from my state coming together with Trippie Redd on the track Rockstar Nights. Ohioans, unite! The track Lord I Know is a perfect ending to this project, Cudi reflecting on the impact of his music over the years and the importance of the message he's been preaching. I like the combination of these decently heavy 808s with this off-kilter woodwind instrumental that's looped throughout the song. It adds an interesting quirk while also having an empowering message that you're paying attention to. And will there be another Man on the Moon or just another Cudi album soon in general? I guess we're gonna find out. So in the end, Man on the Moon 3, I think it's a really good album. I really do. Like I mentioned, this is probably his best album to me solo-wise in a while. Out of most artists, especially within the hip-hop community, Kid Cudi is the perfect poster child to preach this peace, love, and positivity. A way better fit than other artists that attempt to do so. He's able to find the balance between letting loose and taking things seriously for a therapeutic blend of slightly psychedelic hip-hop with an inspirational edge to it, all with the thesis of, if I'm able to make it through my battles at the level that I'm at, then anything is possible. It isn't putting on a disguise as much as it is embodying the themes in his music. Man on the Moon 3 is a great reflection piece not just for Cudi himself, but for the fans that have been with him throughout the entire ride. In return for bearing with Cudi as he's gone through his phases over the years, he offers a thank you with this addition to his saga. Despite moments where Cudi's verses can feel like tangents that don't fully connect to individual song concepts and vocal performances that aren't the most dynamic in the world, its execution is still felt through being a wholesome and relatable piece of art. Kids See Ghosts was a euphoric renaissance for Kanye and Cudi, the difference being that Cudi didn't have his own solo project to reinstate his newfound mental health. He's shown that wait has been worth it though, as a 4-act album in the vein of Cudi's music proves to be just what we needed now more than ever. Cudi is a once-in-a-lifetime artist, and I'm glad to hear his music can still possess the ability to entertain while also being soulful. I wouldn't say he's back necessarily because he never went anywhere, but I would go as far as to say he sounds more confident and focused in his art, and that's definitely being conveyed. I'm really glad this project exists, I enjoy a great deal of it, and he remains to be an artist that no matter what, I'm going to be intrigued for what his musical output is going to sound like. Now this is the part of the video where I rank this album out of the rest of Kid Cudi's discography as my iPad goes off in the background, and this is where I think I'm gonna lose some friends for sure. I don't think. Well, let's rip off the band-aid, shall we? For my number 1 favorite Kid Cudi project, I am willing to admit this is only because of my nostalgia lenses, but it doesn't change the fact that I still adore this project. It is Man on the Moon 2, The Legend of Mr. Ranger. I know it's kind of corny to say, oh, this album helped me get through some hard times, but really, I found this project when I was in high school, and the amount of quote-unquote hard times that I went through during that time period, this album was always a project I turned to, and I like every single one of these songs. I never skip it when I listen to it. I went back to it just earlier this week, and I still enjoyed the hell out of it. So I'm sorry, alright? But this is my ranking, so then again, I'm not really sorry. Next, I'm going to put the classic original Man on the Moon, The End of Day, just hits on hits with this album. Every song is memorable for me in some way, shape, or form. I wasn't really into music when this dropped because it just predated me a little bit, but even then, listening to it like a couple years afterwards, it still hit the same. In my eyes, a true classic. And for my 3rd slot, I think I'm gonna do it. I think I'm going to put Man on the Moon 3, The Chosen. And then following that, in 4th, I am going to put Kids See Ghosts. I was always one of those people that liked this project, I really do, but the amount of hype that it got when it first dropped, I never understood it. Good, but not like amazing. Following in 5th, I'm going to have to put Indicud. 6th, Passion, Pain, and Demon Slayin'. I know a lot of people prefer Passion, Pain, and Demon Slayin'. I think the highs in that album are really high, like Releaser, Rose Golden, Baptized in Fire. However, Indicud just has this weird feeling to it, and I think it was way more crapped on than it should have been when it was released. There were just songs on Passion Pain that were drawn out way too long, like way past the 4-minute mark. And for as out there and strange of a project as Indicud is, I still enjoy listening to it for that reason. And then Kid Cudi presents Satellite Flight, and finally and last, I'm going to have to put, who would have guessed it, Speed and Bullet to Heaven. For my top 5 songs from the project, I'm going to have to go with Tequila Shots, Dive, Heaven on Earth, Lovin' Me, and Lord I Know. Thank you for watching all the way into the end. If you made it all the way into the end of the video, you know that's something I truly appreciate. If you want to tell me what you thought about this album, do you think it's better than I thought it was, worse than I thought it was, are you upset at my album rankings? Let me know in the comment section, or you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, links in the description, and we can talk about it there. If you want to leave a like or subscribe, you know I truly appreciate that as well, and as of now, this is going to be my last review until 2021. I'm working on my year-end list from here on out. If Whole Lotta Red drops before then, praying to God that actually happens, then I'll consider doing a review about it, or maybe just a short video about it, but until then, I'll see you in the next one.
What is this? You got the camera going?
No.
Chocolate rain my ass.